Hi, I'm Brandon Wegner, founder and chairman of the board of directors for the Drunk Driving Prevention Program. Today, we're going to be discussing chapter treasurer training. So, the document that we're looking at here goes over all the different responsibilities that you have as the chapter treasurer. And if you ever want to reference this document, you can just log in at the DDPP website and click on chapter officer, and you'll be able to view the document from here. So first, as the treasurer, you are responsible for the financial records of the organization. So what you're going to have to do is you're going to have to keep a written record of all expenses and donations to your local chapter. And now, if the previous treasurer has a written record that they pass off to you, which they should, you can continue to just add to that record. But if for some reason they don't, then you need to start your own record, and that can just be, doesn't have to be in any kind of specific financial book or anything like that. You can just log it in a binder or notepad, whatever, as long as you're keeping track of all the expenses and donations. And in addition to having the written record, you're also going to log everything on the website. So you can access the finance page from the chapter officer tab. And anytime you get a donation, you'll just log the donation. I'm going to delete all this and update everything later. So this test donation won't be here. Normally, don't input a test. Don't, only input something if it's correct, because you can't delete anything you input in the database. Only the system administrator, myself, can. So, and then just list your chapter, and then if the say you guys set out a donation jar at a some sort of function like a unit ball or something, and nobody really wanted a receipt. They just wanted a whole bunch, or they just wanted to donate, and it's just an anonymous donation, then it's fine. You can just lump all the anonymous donations from that event into one record and list it as anonymous. But if somebody, let's say they make a large donation, or and anytime, even when somebody just puts a donation in the jar, ask them if they would like a receipt. And if they say yes, then you just come here and you can log it, and it actually automatically mails them a receipt. But if they say no, like I said, anonymous. But let's say they did say they wanted a receipt. Let's say they donated $20 on that day. Then you just list their information. And make sure when you list addresses, you list the full address, because there's only one line, but make sure you list the street, city, state, zip code, and everything. Then your donations added, and it actually also sends them a text message showing that they made the donation, and then they can they can view all of their donations when they log into the DDPP website, and it actually automatically creates them an account and sends them a email with their information if it's a new account. If they previously had an account, then it just adds to their account. So that's how you log donations and how you issue out receipts. We don't issue paper receipts. We just issue the because, like I said, they can access everything from the DDPP webpage. I mean, if they really want a paper receipt, you can write something on a piece of paper and give it to them too. But and then anytime you have a cash, so that's how you handle cash donations. If you have a cash expense, then say you, and it has to be for things that should be authorized, that are for the chapter. Uh, don't be spending don't spend money on things that would raise questions and be questionable, like obviously it's just stuff for the chapter. Like, say you need paper to print out flyers, that's fine. Say you need a new DDPP banner or something, or, well, that you usually wouldn't get with cash. Let's say you're doing a car wash and you need soap for the car wash, or whatever. Things like that are for the chapter, are the only things that you should be purchasing. I mean, it should be obvious what's acceptable and what's not acceptable. But if you ever have any questions, reach out to the national treasurer or national operations officer or even national president. Let's say date spent today, and always make sure that you're listing your chapter. Don't forget to change it, because if you list it as national, then that's not going to record the expense for you guys. And make sure you choose a category. Most things are going to be office expenses, like even with the car wash example, that would still be an office expense. Well, actually, the car wash example would be a fundraising expense, but paper would be a office expense if you needed to print flyers or something like that. But yeah, if you're doing a fundraiser, it would be a fundraising expense. But yeah, most are either going to be office expense or fundraising expense. Or technically, if you're getting paper for flyers, that could be an advertising expense. But anyway, so let's just say it's a office expense. Oops. And let's just say you purchased paper, and store you purchased it from, let's say it was Office Max. And then you always have to upload a receipt for any cash expenses. So if you're actually going to have things in multiple categories that aren't going to all be office expense or advertising expense or fundraising expense, purchase those separately so you can get separate receipts. But anyway, so then you'll just upload a receipt. I'm just going to upload something random, just so that I can upload something. But normally it would be a receipt in either JPEG or PDF or PNG format. And that's it. It's been uploaded. Now, if somebody gives a check to your chapter, then you would just record the check here, and you make sure you choose your chapter, date you received the check, and again, this logs all the donor information and sends them a receipt. So make sure to fill all that out and add the full address, not just the street address. Now, if you haven't mailed it yet, you should be able to leave that blank, but then also take a picture of the check. And if you have an iPhone, pictures aren't naturally JPEGs or PDFs, but you can actually go into your settings and change it to a JPEG or PNG, I mean, to a JPEG or PNG so that you can upload it right from your phone rather than having to scan it. And it's been uploaded. So that's mostly all you're going to do. This is uploading this stuff is for the national treasurer to take care of. Also, if your chapter has more than $500 cash on hand, you have to convert that to a money order and mail that to the chapter or to the national CFO, the national treasurer, in order to donate to, or in order to upload to the bank account, because you have to actually be bonded in order to have more than $500 cash on hand, according to the private organizations regulation AR 210-22, which we have to operate under in order to operate on post. And since you're not bonded, just make sure you don't have more than $500 cash on hand. And then when the treasurer deposits it, then they'll upload the statements, and it'll be logged in the bank account. But in here you can see all the different transactions. And if well, this is more for the bank account. The national treasurer will take care of this, but for any transactions that were in the national bank account, they can attach receipts to them, and there should be a receipt for everything. And then if you want to view the status of, and here's your cash information for your chapter. The one we added here, paper, Office Max, can see that. And then the check is tracking here. And then when this part okay, so we didn't list a mail date because say you want to record the check right away, and you're going to mail it tomorrow or something like that. Then once you do finally mail it, you come in and log that the check was mailed, and it will go back and hit refresh. Update. You can see right here, updated the mail date. Now this part you're not going to touch, the received by and deposited by, because obviously that's going to be taken care of by the national treasurer or myself. Those are the only people that are on the bank account currently. So so you're not going to worry about that. And then once the check is deposited, the national treasurer will actually, after they upload the statement, so everything has a transaction number, as you can see, that's like for Wells Fargo, it all has a transaction number. So they'll just enter that transaction number, and then the check will be associated with that transaction number, so the donor will be able to because until the checks, the donor can't actually get a receipt for it. They get an email saying that once it's uploaded, they'll be able to download the receipt. But we don't give them a receipt until it's actually deposited, because they could, write you a check for $10,000 and then it bounce. And, then they tell the IRS, oh, look, I've got this receipt for $10,000 that I donated. And really, we never actually received that money. So until the check clears and goes through is when it gets attached to the item number, and they're able to download their receipt for that. But they do get a email and confirmation saying that it's pending. They get that right away, so that they can acknowledge the receipt of their check, and they're not just handing it off without any kind of documentation. Anyway, so then the next part down here is really important, and I'm probably going to add, if you want to just sort by just chapter, but this right here, let's just go way back to October 2016 until today. So you just enter whatever time frame you want to see your expenses and deposits, and click on that, and then it will give you a breakdown of everything, all your expenses, all your deposits, your cash expenses, deposits, Wells Fargo expenses, deposits, and give you more detailed information, and then break everything down. It sums it all up for you. And this is nationally, so obviously you just look for your chapter's information. And again, don't get confused, but because it's a lot of the same stuff repeated different times, but it's for different, like the different bank accounts, like for the Wells Fargo, the PayPal, or cash. So like here is Wells Fargo. Don't think that's your total one. Make sure you look for the one, and here's PayPal. Make sure you're looking for the appropriate one. Like at the very bottom right here is totals of everything. So that is mostly what you're going to be doing online as the treasurer. So again, those, and a good when you're keeping your written record, a good thing to track off is this. Is the same information that's right here. If you're not sure what you should be logging, just make sure you're logging the same information, the amount, the date, whether it was anonymous or if it's a specific person, and if it's specific, just you can keep that on one line. It can either say anonymous or then have the donor's name, and then contact information, and then what it was spent and where it was spent, what type of purchase it was, these things. That's what you're going to have on your written record. So anyway, so that's keeping track of financial records. So the next thing is countersigned contracts executed by the president. You're probably not going to have a lot of that unless you get promoted to national treasurer. Sign all checks. You're really not going to be dealing with checks, so unless you get promoted to national. So again, don't really worry about that too much. Receive and be responsible for all funds and assets of the association. We've discussed that. Make authorized disbursements. So again, that's what we talked about when we were saying that you need to only purchase things that are for the chapter and are needed, and really wouldn't cause any issues. Like, obviously you're not going to take your chapter officers out drinking to celebrate how well you've been doing. That would not be with chapter funds. That would not be an authorized disbursement, and that could be considered fraud or theft. So you don't want to go down that road. Just buy things that are for the chapter and are needed. Maintain necessary bank accounts. Again, you're not the national treasurer, so you're not going to have to worry about that. But just keep track of the cash account for you're keeping track of all the cash for your chapter. Maintain financial records. That's what we've covered. Present a monthly financial report to the officer membership. So again, keep track of everything in the system, and then you can just pull up how much cash you guys have currently have, how much you have in the that's been deposited to the bank account that's for your chapter. And you can just use the automated system to do the sort by dates to get all that information to present at your volunteer council meetings that are quarterly, or actually it says monthly on here. So actually you're going to be meeting once a month with your chapter president and just your chapter officers to have your officer meeting. But then, so you'll present that then, and then you'll also present it at volunteer council meeting, just so everybody's on the same page of what's going on, how much money you guys have. Present books and financial records for audit. So your chapter president will audit your paper books as well as your the online books to make sure everything all matches up and that you have receipts for everything. Yeah, so they'll do audit, and it should be quarterly, not as needed that they'll do an audit. Make sure the books and financial records are available for inspection. Required to accept payment through the DDPP office. So if a breathalyzer or dash cam was issued out to somebody and they lost it or damaged it, then they would have to pay for that breathalyzer to be replaced. So you would accept payment for that, and you would log that. Treasurer is responsible for keeping an account book of all money. We've already discussed keeping a book of all your records. Responsible to deposit all money into the DDPP bank account. So we used to have chapter bank accounts, but now it's all centralized nationally. So the only depositing is going to be like we talked about, where you'd if you get over $500 cash on hand, you convert that to a money order or cash traveler's check, cashier's check, whatever, and mail that to the national treasurer and or myself. And actually, my address to mail to was the address that we listed before, the 1685 Cantor Court, Redding, California 96002. Let's go to things so I can type that out again so you can see that. Right here, just like that. And Brandon Wegner. So you can send checks to that address. But call the national treasurer first to see if they're actually on the bank account. If they're not on the bank account yet, because they have to go down and there's a whole process that they have to go through. So, but anyway, if they're not on it, then just mail it to me, and I'll deposit it and link and update it in the website. Treasurer's bonded. You're not going to be bonded, so you can't deal with more than $500 cash on hand. So this is just talking about the fiscal year, which is February 1st, and that's just for accounting purposes. and you are reviewed by the corporate treasurer. So, in addition to the president doing an audit, the corporate treasurer will probably do an audit. And you can always reach out to the corporate treasurer, CFO, if you ever have any questions. Make sure you're updating the financial tracker. We've discussed that on the website. And now here's the next big thing that you're responsible for as treasurer. Once a month, you should go to 2 different either bars, clubs, restaurants, any kind of business in order to see if they're willing to make a donation to the DDPP. And you can just tell them about what we do, let them know we're a tax-exempt organization, and you can download our letter from the IRS certifying that we're a tax-exempt organization from the chapter officer page right here to take with you and to see if they'd be willing to make a donation. And then your other, so that's one way you can raise money for your chapter, and you should do just at least 2 once a month. And then the next thing is to go to plan different fundraisers. So there's all sorts of different fundraisers you could do. You could try and plan a walk run for charity, car washes, fundraiser dinner, or also fundraiser barbecue, all sorts of different things to try and raise money for your chapter. And you should do at least 2 events quarterly. A bare minimum, do at least 1 event quarterly. And you guys can plan all that out at your chapter or at your volunteer council meetings. And you can actually put together committees in order to work on that. And then any additional assignments that the chapter president has for you that are related to your office, or just need to get done to help run the chapter, you may be assigned additional duties. But that completes our training. So if you have any questions, again, reach out to the national treasurer. And there's also documentation. You can view our Constitution bylaws that lists your duties, and there's also documentation showing what you should be doing on a regular basis. You can view this sheet that I'm looking at right here by downloading it from the chapter officer page. So thank you for everything you do. Appreciate it. This program couldn't exist without our volunteers. So thank you for helping to save lives and better your community. And have a great day.